I didn't even make it to the chair before it was over. The cafe was crowded with people on early lunch breaks, the kind of place where everything feels curated jazz humming softly from a hidden speaker, the clink of delicate teacups, polished wood tables. But nothing could prepare me for what was waiting for me. Across from me sat Graham Ellis, my fiancé. Or at least he had been until 10 seconds ago. He looked up from his untouched cappuccino and said flatly, "We need to talk." That was all it took. My stomach twisted like it had been yanked in two. I forced a shaky smile as I slid into the seat across from him. "Is this about the caterer?" I asked. God, I was still clinging to normalcy to some last thread. He didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small dark red velvet box. Not to offer it, but to take it back. "I can't marry you, Elise." 7 words. They didn't echo, they detonated. I just blinked at him. What he leaned back sighing, as if this were some long-delayed relief. "We're heading in different directions. I've met someone who aligns better with what I want. Someone else." I didn't even need him to say the name, but he did anyway. Ashley Thorne. Ashley Thorne, venture capitalist royalty. Her father practically owned half of Silicon Valley. The pieces fell into place with a sickening snap. He wasn't just leaving me, he was trading up. Trading stable nurse Elise Martin for a trust-funded heiress. "I'm sorry," he added, like that made a difference. "You deserve someone simpler." Simpler. The words sliced deeper than he probably intended. I was a nurse, not a debutante. I worked 12-hour shifts, not charity galas. He held out his hand expectant. I slipped the ring off slowly. My fingers trembled, but I placed it on the table with care. "Thank you for your honesty," I whispered. And then I walked away. I didn't go back to the apartment we shared. I couldn't face the neatly labeled moving boxes, the dress I'd picked with my sister, the echoing walls of the life we were supposed to start. But I didn't expect what was waiting when I arrived. My belongings were already packed and placed by the door. Shoes, clothes, books, all sorted and zippered tight in duffel bags. Not Graham. He wasn't the type to organize anything. It had to be his mother, tight-lipped, always composed, probably whispering in his ear since the engagement started. I sat down on the floor, curled beside the bags, and let silence do what words couldn't ten. My old lease was long gone. I'd given it to a med student. I had no home, no plan, and just $83 in my checking account. Every cent I'd saved had gone into the wedding. I hadn't called her in over a year, but in that moment I only had one number left. Margie. I choked the second the line clicked. "Elise, oh sweetheart, where have you been?" Margaret Connor, my former foster mother, sounded exactly the same, warm, steady a voice that held you up before you even knew you were falling. "I was just thinking about those boots we saw online. I nearly ordered them for you. I couldn't even speak. Just a sob raw shaking." An hour later, I was on her plaid couch under a chunky knit blanket peppermint tea in my another place had gone sideways. She didn't ask questions. She just said, "Stay, as long as you can. No one's talking in here." That night I couldn't sleep. I stood up, back where I started alone, humiliated, totally ghosted the future I built in my head. If I knew more, I put on my skills. The hospital calls were the same. Same charts, same nurses, same patients asking about honeymoon plans. I smiled, nodded, lied. I said the wedding was postponed. I said Graham had to travel for business. I said I was okay, but I wasn't. I was bleeding inside. Quietly. 3 days passed in a haze of clinical normalcy. And then came Rachel Alvarez, my charge nurse. Sharp eyes, blunt voice. She poked her head into room 8 while I was adjusting a saline drip. "You still looking for an escape plan?" I blinked. "What?" She motioned me into the hallway, lowering her voice. "You remember Jasmine from Neuro? Took a private care job last month. Live-in. Huge pay. She quit. Couldn't handle the guy. What guy? Some rich tech recluse up in Cypress Ridge. Paralyzed after a ski accident. Real charming from what I hear. But she added with a smirk it pays 12 grand a month. Room food, no night shifts. Just one patient. I hesitated. I'm not a full-time caregiver. You're a nurse with trauma rotation experience and the spine of a rhino, Rachel said. You've lasted longer than anyone I know in this dump. Trust me, that job's yours if you want it. 10 minutes later, she handed me a card. White. Embossed. Simple. Marjorie Lane Estate Manager. A number. That was it. It took me until midnight to call. Outside, in the cold air behind Margie's house phone, shaking in my hands, I dialed. A clipped voice answered. Lane speaking. This is Elise Martin. I was told there's a private care position available. A pause. Then interview. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. sharp. Texting you the address. The line went dead. At 4:45 a.m., I boarded a flight to San Francisco, then a shuttle up into the hills above Monterey Bay. Cypress Ridge appeared like something out of a dream, a cliffside fortress of glass, steel, and money. I stood at the gates with my old duffel bag, wondering how I'd gone from wedding bells to this. But there was no going back. Only forward. And that house was the beginning. The estate rose like something out of a storybook, rewritten by a tech billionaire, angular, elegant, distant. A long, curving driveway brought me face to face with a towering glass entrance framed by pale stone walls. As the cab pulled away, I suddenly wanted to run. But before I could move, the front door opened. A woman in her 60s appeared, tall and willowy, dressed in navy slacks and a white blouse so crisp it looked starched into shape. Her hair was pinned into a silver twist that didn't dare loosen. Miss Martin, she said, not a question. Yes. You must be Marjorie Lane. She gave one small nod. You're early. Good. Follow me. The interior of the estate was as silent as it was immaculate. Stone floors stretched beneath footsteps swallowing rugs. The walls held no photos, only modern abstract paintings that looked expensive and emotionless. The smell wasn't homey either. It was cold, clean linen and eucalyptus. We walked in silence to a small room that could have been an office or an interrogation chamber. Marjorie gestured to a leather chair and slid a folder toward me. Resume, she asked. I handed her a printed copy. She scanned it quickly without expression, then looked up. Why did you leave your last position? I wasn't given a choice, I replied honestly. Her lips didn't move for a second. Then references, I gave her a list. She didn't bother to call anyone while I was there. After 4 questions, 2 about emergency protocols, 1 about wound care, 1 about confidentiality, she closed the folder. You're hired, I blinked. Just like that, she stood. Your patient requires discretion, resilience, and immediate availability. You qualify. The terms are as follows. Round-the-clock presence. 2 days off per month. No visitors. Salary is $12,000 monthly. Lodging, meals, and a private suite included. Bonuses will be based on patient progress. I tried to keep my expression still, but the number made my breath catch. And the patient I asked, Mr. Cole Remington. The name rang no bells. Not yet. Marjorie handed me a second folder, thicker than the first. Your contract. Review tonight. Orientation begins tomorrow. Your room is adjacent to his suite. You'll meet him at 9 a.m. sharp. And with that, she walked me upstairs down a hallway with enormous windows looking out over a sprawling pine forest. My room was tucked into the corner, spacious, pristine, impersonal. A bed, a dresser, a door to a private bath. On the nightstand was a digital clock, a tray with bottled water, and 1 folded towel. I barely slept. Just lay on the too stiff mattress staring at the ceiling. Who was Cole Remington? What kind of man needed this level of secrecy? And why had no one lasted longer than a few weeks? At 8:57 a.m. the next morning, I stood outside a tall oak door at the far end of the hall. Marjorie was beside me, clipboard in hand. "You're sure you want this?" she asked, still not looking at me. "I signed the contract," I replied. "That's not what I asked." I took a slow breath. "Yes, I'm sure." She knocked twice, then opened the door without waiting. The room inside was huge, almost cathedral-like. Vaulted ceilings, glass walls that opened onto a wide view of the forest. A faint breeze filtered in through the cracked window, rustling the corner of a curtain. He was by the window back to us in a sleek, matte black wheelchair. His shoulders were broad, beneath a dark, long-sleeved shirt posture, tense but upright. When he finally turned, I froze. He was young, no more than mid-30s. Dark hair cropped short, clean-shaven jaw, pale skin that hadn't seen the sun in a while. His eyes met mine with the force of something sharp and steel blue, and he looked at me like I had already failed him. So he said, his voice low, rough. "They sent another one." I opened my mouth, unsure what to say, but he didn't let me. "What's the bet this time, Marjorie?" "A week, 10 days. She didn't respond. She simply said, "This is Miss Elise Martin, your new live-in nurse." Then she turned and left, closing the door behind her with a gentle click. Silence. "I'm not here to place bets," I said carefully. "I'm here to do my job." He rolled forward a few inches, studying me like I was a badly written novel. "And what job is that exactly? Medication administration, physical therapy, oversight vitals, monitoring meal scheduling. You forgot the part where you nod sympathetically while I fail to walk again," he said with a bitter smile. "That's usually everyone's favorite." I didn't flinch. "I'm not here to pity you." That seemed to surprise him. His mouth curled faintly. "New tactic. Let's see how long it lasts." The rest of the day passed in strained silence. I reviewed his medical charts, paralyzed from the waist down after a ski accident. Multiple surgeries. Physical therapy discontinued 6 months ago. No recent improvements logged. He made a few sharp comments as I worked, testing me. But I didn't bite. I'd seen worse. Teenagers addicted to pain meds. War veterans who cried through phantom limb agony. Mothers who refused treatment so their kids could eat. Pain didn't scare me, not his, not mine. That night, as I finished prepping his meds, he spoke again. "You're not what I expected." I glanced up. "Why?" "You haven't asked about the accident." "I figured you'd tell me if you wanted to." A pause. Then, almost reluctantly, "Ski trip. Solo. Ridge too narrow. Lost control. Woke up in a helicopter. Haven't stood unassisted since." I nodded. "Thank you for telling me." He stared at me. "Why'd you take this job?" I needed it. "Not the money." "Why this job?" I met his eyes. "Because I know what it's like to be discarded." That stopped him. His expression cracked just slightly. Then he turned away. "Don't get attached," he muttered. "I don't do gratitude. And I don't do friendship." "Good," I said. "I don't do illusions." He didn't reply. But he didn't dismiss me either. That should have been the end of it. But 5 nights later, I saw something that changed everything. The wind outside had been howling long, bone-deep gusts that shook the windows. I was heading to close the blinds when I noticed a light on down the hall, the West Wing gym, a room Cole rarely allowed anyone in. I told myself to ignore it. But something made me walk down the corridor barefoot, quiet. And when I cracked the door open, I saw him, standing. Not well, not steady, but gripping a pair of parallel bars, arms trembling, sweat slick on his face, jaw clenched with pain. His legs shook with effort, but they moved. Step, pause, step. He wasn't paralyzed. He wasn't helpless. He was hiding progress. I didn't mean to make a sound, but the door creaked slightly. His head whipped around, and then I saw something worse than pain. Rage. "What the hell are you doing?" he barked. I heard something. I thought, "Get out, Elise." But I didn't move. "Why are you hiding this?" I asked quietly. He gripped the bars tighter, because when people see progress, they expect miracles, and when you fail, they leave. My chest ached. You'd rather let them think you've given up. He glared. You don't understand. Maybe I do. I stepped closer. Careful. Gentle. Like approaching a wounded animal. I'm not going to tell anyone, I said. But if you let me help, really help, we can work towards something better. You don't have to do this alone. His jaw clenched. Why do you care? Because I know what it's like to have your future ripped away and be expected to smile through the wreckage. He didn't speak, just stood there breathing heavy. Then slowly, almost reluctantly, he lowered himself back into the chair. Fine, he muttered. But this stays between us. I say stop, we stop. I say go, you help. Deal. He looked at me again, something sharper than doubt flashing in his eyes. You're not like the others. I shrugged. I'm not trying to be. The next morning, nothing was said. No mention of the gym. No reference to our conversation. Cole was his usual difficult self, demanding sarcastic, refusing help with everything from shaving to stretching. But something had changed beneath it. I could feel it. He let me adjust his leg brace without complaint. He didn't snap when I changed his bandages. He even accepted a protein shake without the usual eye roll. And that night, when the rest of the estate was still, I found him waiting in the gym. No words. He just nodded once at the parallel bars. It became a ritual. Every night at 11:15, I'd knock once on the gym door. If he opened it, we trained. If he didn't, I walked away without a word. Some nights, he barely moved. Other nights, he made it 2 full steps before collapsing into the chair again. But he kept showing up. That was enough. Weeks passed. He started talking more. Not much, not deeply. But I learned he liked black coffee, hated reality television, and once dated an Olympic swimmer named Nadia. He never mentioned family, never mentioned friends. The only photo in his room was a faded, black and white image of a dog. No one visited, no one called. Until one afternoon when the estate phone rang. Marjorie answered then, came to find me. Her face was stiff. There's someone here for Mr. Remington. I suggest you stay nearby. I rounded the corner just as the front door opened. A woman swept in like she owned the floor. Tall, blonde, perfectly manicured. Her heels clicked against the stone like a ticking clock. Samantha Cole muttered from behind me. His voice had dropped 2 full octaves. Darling, she said, her tone edged in diamonds. You look worse than I expected. She didn't wait for permission, just marched into the living room and sat down like she'd done it 100 times. I moved to help him follow, but he waved me off. This won't take long. I stood at the hallway edge, pretending to dust the credenza, but I listened. You didn't return my calls, she said, crossing her legs with a slow, deliberate grace. I didn't want to, he replied flatly. She gave a small, icy laugh. Still bitter, I see. I thought time was supposed to soften people. What do you want, Sam? She sighed. Daddy's estate. There's a meeting next month in Zurich. I need you there. The lawyers won't finalize without all parties present. Cole didn't speak. She pressed on. We both know you're still a trustee. I've done all the heavy lifting, you just have to show up and sign. His voice was a quiet threat. You think I care about that money? She raised a perfectly arched brow. Don't you? You always did. That was when I saw something flicker in his expression, not anger. Regret. You were the one who told them I was faking it, he said. Silence. I told them you were unstable, she said coolly. You locked yourself away in this. Mausoleum refused. Every rehab center fired everyone who cared. What did you expect? His fists clenched. I expected my sister to believe in me. Ah. Sister. The revelation landed like a weight in my stomach. I glanced toward the photo on his shelf. Not a dog. A wolf. Alone. Samantha stood brushing imaginary dust off her jacket. Be in Zurich on the 10th. Or I'll tell them you're mentally incompetent. I'm not bluffing, Cole. He didn't respond. When she swept past me, our eyes met. Hers were cold, calculating. "Take care of him, nurse," she said. "Just don't expect him to thank you." After she left, I waited a beat before walking into the room. He was still staring at the spot she'd stood in. "She's wrong," I said quietly. He didn't look up. "About what?" "You're not broken." He laughed, bitter and hollow. "Aren't I?" "No," I said. "But you're still bleeding from wounds no one wants to admit you have." For a moment, I thought he might yell. Or shut down. But instead, he closed his eyes. Just for a second. Do you think he said if I walked into that meeting, they'd see me as human again? I stepped closer. "Number. They'd see you as a threat." That got his attention. He looked up. "You terrify them, Cole, because they can't control you anymore." He studied me for a long time, then said, "Will you help me stand again, before the 10th? I nodded. "You'll do more than stand." His eyes searched mine. "You're not just a nurse," he said softly. "No," I agreed. "I'm not." And from that moment on, we both stopped pretending. We were just roles in someone else's story. We were writing our own. The next 3 weeks were war. Not the loud, bloody kind, but the quiet, brutal kind where every movement hurts and no one claps for you. We trained at dawn and midnight. We iced knees and rewrapped calloused hands. He fell twice. Got sick from exhaustion. Cursed me out once so hard, I nearly left the room. But I stayed. Because I'd seen the fire behind his eyes. And I knew what it felt like when people stopped seeing yours. Cole was relentless. Even when his legs trembled so hard he collapsed into the chair, he'd say, again with teeth clenched, "I didn't baby him. I wasn't gentle." I reminded him who he was before he broke, and slowly, piece by piece, he started to believe it too. We kept it quiet. Even Marjorie didn't know the full extent. The gym door stayed locked, the house calm on the surface, but every morning he stood a little longer. Every night his voice steadied a little more. Then came the letter. It arrived in a crisp envelope with a Zurich postmark. Marjorie handed it to me in the foyer. "Private," she said, though her eyes scanned the return address like it might bite her. Cole opened it in his study. I watched from the doorway. "They're moving up the meeting," he said, barely above a whisper. "It's in 5 days." I swallowed. "You're not ready." "No," he said, voice cold and certain. "But I will be." The plan came together in the hush of midnight. We booked a private flight. He called his attorney, an older man named Whitman, who sounded like he drank lawsuits for breakfast. We reviewed documents until dawn. Cole gave orders with precision, but I saw the tremble in his hands when he signed his name. "I don't want them to see weakness," he told me, as I packed his medication. "They won't," I said. "They'll see fire." We flew out on a Friday. Zurich was gray, wet, and cold. The meeting was set at a private estate, old money, older walls. I helped him into his suit, a dark charcoal cut perfectly to hide how much weight he'd lost. His cane gleamed with a silver handle. No one had seen him since the accident. He looked like a man who had nothing to lose. "I'm not doing this for the inheritance," he told me as we entered the car. "I'm doing it so she never gets to erase me." When we walked into the boardroom, silence dropped like a guillotine. Samantha was already there, flanked by 2 lawyers, her red lips tight with surprise. She stood slowly. "Cole," she said. "You came." He nodded once. "And I brought backup." He didn't mean the lawyer. He meant me. They began with formalities, but Samantha quickly grew impatient. She pushed forward the papers. "You just need to sign, and we can be done. Everything splits cleanly. Fairly." "Fairly," he echoed. "You tried to have me declared unfit, only after you stopped responding to every legal notice. Because I was in a bed unable to speak," he snapped. Her smile tightened. "We did what we had to." He stood then. No drama. Just straightened, gripped the cane, and walked slow but steady around the table. Her eyes widened. One of her lawyers leaned back stunned. "I'm not here to argue," he said. "I'm here to make it very clear I won't be signing anything that hands over my rights. Not today. Not ever." She blinked. "You don't have a choice." He slid a folder across the table. "Actually, I do. These are the medical records. Full recovery underway. I'm of sound mind and body. And I'm filing a motion to contest the entire agreement." Her mouth opened, closed. "You should have let me stay invisible," he added quietly. Now I'm standing. Later back in the hotel, he didn't speak for a long time. I sat beside him on the window bench watching the rain. "They'll come after me harder now," he said. "Then we push back harder," I replied. His face. The silence was cold as storm. I slept for the first time without hearing the echo of my old name in my past. I didn't dream of this, or the wedding that never happened. I dreamed of a stone horse pop. Not perfectly, not cleanly, but fully. When we returned to the States, it was spring. The trees around us were just beginning to Cole walked the hallway without his cane. Not far, but enough. I cried that morning not because of what we'd gained, but because of what we'd fought for. And won. Summer crept in slowly, the way it does in the hills. Not all at once, but in the small things: lemon light on the patio, open windows, letting in birdsong, the smell of lavender trailing in from the garden. For the first time in years, the house didn't feel like a shrine to someone who'd been broken. It felt alive. Cole was walking nearly every morning now. Some days a full half-mile, other days just laps around the library when his back hurt too much. But he never stopped. We had routines: coffee at 7, rehab at 9, lunch at noon, unless he was stubborn and wanted to cook it himself. He was still terrible at rice. "I don't get it," he muttered one afternoon, frowning at the scorched pot. "I coded an AI to monitor hospital traffic, but this eludes me." I grinned from the bar stool. "Rice isn't impressed by your PhD." He looked over at me, hair, tousled sleeves, rolled face flushed from the heat, and my chest tightened. It wasn't just affection, it was respect, and something deeper I hadn't let myself name. Then one evening, just after sunset, he handed me a folder. "This is yours," he said. I opened it. Inside were trust documents, an official letter of inclusion. "You're putting me in your estate. I'm not giving you a company," he said. "I'm giving you a stake in what we build next." I stared at him. "Why?" He took a breath. "Because you saw me when I couldn't even see myself. You didn't flinch, you didn't walk away. You fought with me. For me, and I want you here not as staff, not even as a partner, as whatever you choose to be." He pulled a small box from his pocket. No velvet, no show, just a plain black box with a gold hinge. "I know this isn't a fairy tale," he said, voice low. "And I know we're both still putting ourselves back together. But I want to ask anyway." He opened it. A ring. Simple gold with a tiny sapphire in the center. "Emily Foster," he said. "My name, my real name, not the one from my old life. Would you consider walking this road with me, not to save me? Not to fix me, but to remind me who I still am?" I didn't cry. I thought I would. But I just smiled, took the ring, and slid it on my finger. "I'm not saying yes," I whispered. He raised an eyebrow. "But I'm not saying no." He laughed, that soft, real laugh I'd only heard a handful of times. "That sounds exactly like you." We didn't rush. There were no Instagram announcements, no PR-friendly headlines. Just the slow rhythm of healing and growing together. By the time September rolled around, I had opened my own private practice, downtown, small but mine. He'd hired new staff, transitioned to an advisory role in the company he nearly lost. He walked to meetings. He drove again. He cooked better rice. As for Samantha, she sent one last email, short and bitter. "Something about you've made your choice." He never replied. And Jason, he sent a text. 2 lines, I hope you're okay. I didn't answer. Because I was. I was more than okay. I had stood at the edge of ruined heart in pieces and found something most people only glimpse through glass, a life built not on revenge or even redemption, but renewal. Cole still has days when his legs won't listen. I still have moments when I see a dress shop window and feel something twist, but they don't rule us anymore. We rule us. On Cole's birthday, we drove to the Oregon coast. Just us. No staff, no pretense. The wind whipped through our hair as we walked down a stretch of empty beach. He took my hand in his warm and steady. "Do you think we'll ever go back to who we were before it all?" he asked quietly. I shook my head. "I hope not." He turned to me. "Because who we became is better." He didn't say anything, just pulled me in closer as the waves crashed, and the world just for a moment felt like it had exhaled with us. This story began with heartbreak, a broken engagement, a woman cast out like luggage, and a man hidden in shadows after a life-shattering accident. But it didn't end there. Emily Foster lost everything in a single afternoon: her fiancé, her home, her plans. With nowhere to go, she returned to the one place she had once called safe, her foster mother's home. It was there, wrapped in peppermint tea and silence, that she chose not to stay defeated. A chance offer led her to the gates of an estate on a hill where a man named Cole Harrington, once powerful now broken, had built walls even taller than the trees outside. In the silence between them, they found strength. Emily's refusal to give up mirrored Cole's refusal to be erased. Together, they unraveled a betrayal so deep it threatened everything he had left. Through whispered plans, secret rehab sessions, and courtroom reckonings, they took back what was his and discovered what could be theirs. But this isn't a story of revenge. It's a story of choosing to stay, of waking up every day and deciding to heal together. It's about the strength in a steady hand, the weight of quiet loyalty, and how love, when it's real, doesn't ask for perfection, just presence. They didn't save each other. They chose each other. And in doing so, they rewrote what it meant to begin again.